everybody, welcome back to FrontendExpert. In this video, we're going to be going over some essential HTML tags. Now we can't possibly go through every single tag, but we'll go through some of the most frequently used ones and the ones that you might be expected to know what they do on the spot. As we go through these tags, one very important point to remember is how important semantic markup is, meaning that we want to always be using the correct tags for what our HTML means, what our content is. We need to be describing it as best as possible with our tags. And these tags provide content structure, not just layout and style. In fact, they don't provide layout and style at all. There are default layout and style properties that are applied by the browser, but HTML does not define what tags actually look like. So with that in mind, we're not going to be looking at the output in this video. We're going to be talking about this in terms of the semantic HTML, and then we can talk later about how exactly we can actually style these tags to get them to look like we want them to. So the first tag we're going to look at is the paragraph, which we've already seen in some of the other Crash Course videos. So paragraphs simply contain the content of a paragraph. So it uses the p tag, and inside of it we put the content. The one point to remember here is that this doesn't have to be just text. Paragraphs can contain some other content, such as images, if that image is part of the semantic paragraph. Next, we're going to talk about headings. The main heading of the page will use the h1 tag, and this means that it is the highest level heading. And then we have h2 tags for subheadings, and this goes all the way down to h6. So you could imagine a news article, right? And the main heading of the page would be the name of the website, the name of the publication. So that will be an h1. And then the secondary heading will be the name of the article you're currently reading. This would be an h2. And then an h3 could be used within the article for subheadings that are part of that article. The most important thing to remember here is that font sizes and heading levels are not the same thing. We shouldn't use heading levels to choose a font size. The font sizes that are chosen by the browser are just defaults, and we can change them later. We should choose heading levels based on what is the most semantically appropriate tag for our content. Next, let's talk about images. Images use the img tag and are used to display an image on the page. This image will have two attributes, the source and the alternative text. So source uses src, and this is the path to that image. This can be a relative or absolute path. Relative is like what you see here, with the source being dog.png. This is a local file, and it is relative to where the HTML file is on the computer or the server. An absolute path, on the other hand, would be the full path to the image, such as the full path on the computer or server, or a full URL. The alt attribute is used for alternative text, and this is when we aren't able to display the image for any reason. One potential reason for this is screen readers. They need a way to determine what to say the image is of. Another reason for this could just be if somebody's internet wasn't able to download the image for whatever reason, it would need a way to display in the browser what that image was of to give them the best user experience possible. And as we're writing these alt attributes, make sure to write something that's descriptive, that somebody would be able to understand if it was said verbally to them. And also, we don't want to be repetitive with information already contained in the tag. For example, you don't want to say image of a dog, you can just say dog, because the fact that it is an image tag implies already the image of a part, and a screen reader would actually end up saying image of a dog in that scenario, because it would say that it is an image of and then read out the alt text. Next, we have lists, and lists allow us to list out information. And there are two main types of lists, ordered and unordered lists. So an ordered list uses the OL tag for an ordered list. And this tag has children that are list items, or LI tags. These are the only children that an ordered list can take. And each LI tag is one item in this list. So for example, if we had a recipe, each step in the recipe would be a list item in the ordered list, because you have to do these items in order. And by default, the browser will display these as sequential numbered items, so 1, 2, 3, 4, but again, we can change this all with CSS. An unordered list works exactly the same way, except there's no defined order to it. An example here could be a to-do list. You don't necessarily need to do those things in order, you just need to do them all. And by default, these will display as bullet points. Next, we have the pre-formatted text or pre-tag, PRE. And what we use this for is maintaining white space. If you remember from the HTML basics video, white space is largely ignored in HTML, meaning that it's collapsed down into a single space. Well, sometimes we do want to preserve the white space in our text for whatever reason, and we can use the pre-formatted text for this. So in this example, the "this is indented and has a new line" text would show up exactly like that. It would be indented, and it would have a new line in the middle of it. And now let's look at one more way we can control white space with our HTML tags, and that is the line break tag. Line break uses the BR tag, and it's a self-closing tag, so remember that means it has no closing tag, and this creates a line break in the page. Now, it's important to know that this is not a replacement for CSS layout. It does have some semantic meaning of there actually being a line break in your markup. So you want to make sure you're using it at the right time. An example of this, we have this paragraph, and it's representing sort of like an email body or a message body of some kind, where it says, "Dear John, how are you doing?" And after "Dear John," we go to a new line. And this is a line break because there's actually semantic meaning to going to a new line here in the middle of this paragraph. You could make an argument that this doesn't even need the line break tag here, and that instead you could just have two paragraphs, or that this could be done in a variety of different ways. But I think this is a valid semantic usage of this. However, it does show that a lot of these tags are a bit ambiguous, and there are times when there's 2 or 3 correct ways to mark up the same HTML file, and that's perfectly okay. Up next, we have the horizontal rule, or the HR tag. This works very similar to the BR tag. It's a self-closing tag, and it provides a thematic break in the content. And by default, what this will do is the browser is going to draw a horizontal line across the screen. So if we had that blog post again with the 2 sections, and we wanted to say that these 2 sections need a thematic break between them, they are different pieces of content and we need to separate them, we could use an HR tag and the browser will draw a horizontal line across the screen for us. But it's worth noting that the HR tag should not be thought of as just the horizontal line tag. It is a thematic break and it has semantic meaning. So if all we need is a horizontal line for some visual reason, we can do that with CSS. But if we need that thematic break, we can do it with the HTML tag of the horizontal rule, the HR. Next, we have the anchor tag, and this is how we make hyperlinks. So this is the hypertext portion of HTML. The anchor tag allows us to link to other documents on the web, or even other places in the same document that we are currently on. So we use the anchor tag as just the letter A, and we have the href property, href, and this contains the link that we are going to. This can be an absolute or relative link. So in this case, we have an absolute link of algoexpert.io. And then inside of the A tag is the actual content. So in this example, if you clicked on AlgoExpert, it would bring you to the href, it would bring you to algoexpert.io. Additionally, there are a few other attributes that we can add that affect the way that our link will be opened. The most common one is the target attribute, and this allows us to say if we want to open in a new tab or a new window. So we'll do target equals and then underscore blank. And what this means is to show it in a new tab or a new window, whichever preference the user has in their browser. We can't control which one they're going to do. Most people, this will default to opening in a new tab though. Next up, we have the emphasis tag. And the emphasis tag is EM, and this allows us to wrap some text that we want to put emphasis on. By default, the browser will display this in italics. But again, we don't want to do this just because we need italics. We want to do it because of the semantic importance of emphasis. And we can wrap any piece of text like this. So for example, here we have, "I need to study," but the word "need" is wrapped in emphasis, adding a little bit more emphasis to that portion of the text, like "I need to study." And by default, the browser would show this entire sentence normally, but the "need" portion would be italicized. But again, that is something we can change later if we want a different visual representation of the emphasis. And finally, we have one last tag to show, and that is the strong tag. The strong tag works very similar to the emphasis tag, except it shows strong importance. And this can be a little bit ambiguous as to what the difference is, and many times either tag would be appropriate. But anyways, in this example, we have a paragraph that says "note, this is important," and we've wrapped the note portion in a strong tag. By default, the browser will show this as a bold text, so it'll bold the note portion, but again, that is something we can change. And with that, that's going to wrap up this video on essential HTML tags. I hope you found it helpful, and I'll see you